The most famous baitcasting reel ever made was not born in America. It was born in a Swedish watch factory, and the company that sold it to America went bankrupt and nearly took the reel down with it. For 70 years, anglers paid a premium for 3 words stamped on a reel foot made in Sweden. It meant something. This is the story of how that promise was built and who ended up owning it. It starts in a small town on a salmon river with a man who built clocks. Not reels. Clocks. His name was Carl August Borgström. In 1921, in the town of Svängsta, he founded a company called Abu Garcia, Swedish for the watch factory. They made pocket watches, telephone timers, and taximeters, the little metered clocks that ticked away in the back of a cab, precision instruments, tiny gears, cut to a tolerance you could measure in fractions of a millimeter. And just outside the factory windows ran the Mörrum, one of the most famous salmon rivers in all of Europe. That detail is going to matter. For 2 decades, the watch factory did fine. Then the world changed. The Second World War shut down the markets for luxury watches and imported taximeter parts almost overnight. Demand for the things Urfabriken made best simply dried up. A company built on precision clockwork suddenly had skilled hands, fine machines, and nothing profitable to build. The man who saw the way out was the founder's son, Göte Borgström. And Göte had one obsession that would save the family company. He was a fisherman. He looked at the precision his father's factory could deliver, the tiny gears, the tight tolerances, and he looked at the reels coming out of the shops. Crude, sloppy, built without a watchmaker's eye. Göte's bet was simple. Take the discipline of a watch factory and point it at fishing tackle. Build a reel the way you build a chronometer. The early reels carried the name Record. Then the company leaned into its own initials. AB Urfabriken became simply ABU. And ABU started doing something almost no one else was doing, machining, reels like instruments. This is the American Fishing Essentials channel, where we trace the real stories behind the brands that built fishing. If you care where your gear actually comes from, subscribe and hit the bell. A new story every week. Because what ABU built next did not just sell well, it became the single most recognizable casting reel on the planet. In 1952, ABU released a round bait casting reel designed by an engineer named Åke Mervall. They called it the Ambassadeur. It was a tank, a polished, jewel-like little machine with a level wind that never seemed to wear out, gears that meshed like a clock, and a body you could hand down to your grandson, which people did. The model number that made history was the Ambassadeur 5000. In an era when most reels were disposable, this one was rebuildable, reliable, and unmistakable. That deep red side plate became a badge. A few years later, ABU added the Cardinal, a spinning reel with the same obsessive engineering. Between the two, ABU had covered the whole market, and it all carried the same 3 words: Made in Sweden. The Ambassadeur didn't stay a single reel. It became a family. The 5000 led to the 6000 and the 6500, the legendary 6500 that anglers still argue is the best all-around baitcaster ever built. And the timing was perfect. Through the 1960s and 70s, America fell in love with bass fishing. The baitcasting reel went from a specialist tool to the centerpiece of a national obsession, and the Ambassadeur was the baitcaster everyone wanted. On the spinning side, the Cardinal went head-to-head with France's Mitchell 300, the best-selling spinning reel in the world. 2 European reel makers, Swedish steel against French engineering, fighting for the same American tackle box. By the late 70s, the verdict was in. If you were serious about your gear, odds are you fished something with a Swedish name on the foot. That was the peak, and peaks in this business are exactly where the trouble starts. But Sweden is a small country. To become a legend, ABU needed America, and ABU did not sell in America under its own name. It needed a partner. That partner was the Garcia Corporation. Originally, Charles Garcia and Company of New York City, Garcia had grown into the largest fishing tackle company of its time, the machine that put gear into every American shop. Garcia imported the Ambassadeur and sold it across the United States. Through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that red Swedish reel became an American icon, carried by a New York company, built by a Swedish watch factory For ABU, it was a dream. America was, by far, its most important market. Demand was enormous. The little factory on the Mörrum was shipping reels across an ocean as fast as it could machine them. But here is the trap. ABU's biggest market did not belong to ABU. It belonged to Garcia. The Swedish company's fortune was now wired directly into the health of an American partner it did not control. As long as Garcia was strong, ABU was golden. The reputation, the reach, the catalog, all of it ran through one company in New York. And in the late 1970s, that company started to come apart. Garcia had grown fast, maybe too fast. It had expanded across categories, taken on debt, and stretched itself thin across the entire tackle industry. By the back half of the decade, the cracks were structural. In 1978, the Garcia Corporation filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The largest fishing tackle company of its era, or the company that carried the Ambassadeur into America, was insolvent. For ABU, this was not someone else's problem. This was the floor falling out from under its single most important market. The reel was still perfect. The distributor selling it was collapsing. A bankrupt distributor means orders freeze, dealers get nervous, shelves go unstocked, payments stall. The pipeline that had carried millions of Swedish reels into American hands was seizing up. And ABU was an ocean away. This is the part of the story that gets forgotten. The Ambassadeur didn't fail. The market didn't reject it. ABU was nearly dragged under by the failure of the company it had trusted to sell it. If you're enjoying this, drop a like. It genuinely helps these brand histories reach other anglers. And stay with me, because what ABU did next is the boldest move in the whole story. ABU did not run. It did not look for a new distributor and hope for the best. It made a decision that flipped the entire relationship upside down. A member of the founding family, Mörrum Borgström, packed up and moved to the United States, not to visit, but to personally save ABU's most important market from the inside. And by the end of 1978, the Swedish reel maker had done the unthinkable. ABU became the sole owner of Garcia in the United States, operating under a new name, ABU Garcia Incorporated. Read that again. The supplier bought its own bankrupt distributor. The Swedish watch factory swallowed the fallen American giant that had made it famous and kept its biggest market alive by owning it outright. In 1980, ABU Svängsta formalized it, acquiring the New Jersey-based Garcia Tackle Company and officially adopting the name the world still knows today, Abu Garcia. The crisis had a strange ending. A bankruptcy that should have killed ABU's American business instead handed ABU the keys to it. The brand came out the other side bigger, with its own name on the door in 2 countries. For a while, that worked. Through the 80s, Abu Garcia was its own master, Swedish engineering, now with direct control of the American market that had nearly slipped away. But independence in the tackle industry is a temporary condition, because the next chapter is not about reels at all. It's about something anglers almost never see: who actually owns the brand. Through the 90s, the fishing industry began consolidating. Independent legacy brands were bundled together into bigger and bigger holding companies. Abu Garcia would not stay independent for long. In 1995, Abu Garcia became part of a group called Outdoor Technologies Group, one brand inside a portfolio of tackle names. In the year 2000, that group renamed itself Pure Fishing, and here is a twist only a tackle nerd could love. Pure Fishing also acquired Mitchell, the legendary French reel maker, ABU's old rival. The 2 great European reel names now sat in the same corporate drawer, and Mitchell was just the start. Pure Fishing became the place where America's legendary tackle names went to live under one roof. Penn, Pfluger, Berkeley, Fenwick, Stren, Spiderwire, and Abu Garcia right there beside them. Think about what that means. Brands that had spent a century competing for the same shelf, Penn against Abu Garcia, Mitchell against the Cardinal, now shared a parent company, a warehouse, and a spreadsheet. On the shelf, the logos still compete. Different colors, different stories, different ad campaigns. Upstairs, they're the same company, drawing from the same engineering and the same factories. The rivalry you grew up with became quietly a single portfolio. From there, Abu Garcia stopped being a company and became an asset, something to be bought, held, and sold on a balance sheet far from any salmon river. the full story of how legacy tackle brands get bought, rebranded, and quietly moved offshore, and how to read what a reel stamping actually tells you, is exactly what we break down in the Angler's Vault. First link in the description. In 2007, the conglomerate Jarden Corporation acquired Pure Fishing, and with it, Abu Garcia. A Swedish reel brand was now a line item inside a sprawling American consumer products empire that also sold everything from playing cards to camping gear. In December 2015, Jarden itself was swallowed, bought by Newell Rubbermaid, the giant behind brands like Sharpie and Rubbermaid. Abu Garcia was now owned by the same parent company as your kitchen storage containers. And in November 2018 came the move that defines the brand's life today. Newell sold Pure Fishing, Abu Garcia included, to a private equity firm called Sycamore Partners. The price? $1.3 billion. Private equity is a specific kind of owner. The goal, is not heritage, it is return. Brands are bought with debt optimized and eventually sold again. The Salmon River Watch Factory was now part of a financial portfolio managed for the exit, so what happened to those three words? Made in Sweden? The honest answer is the same one behind almost every legacy tackle brand. Manufacturing went global. Today, Abu Garcia products are produced across multiple countries, with much of the work running through Asia. This is not a scandal, it is economics. The same forces that moved nearly every real brand offshore moved Abu Garcia too. The premium that Made in Sweden once carried became a story printed in a catalog more than a line on a factory floor. And yet, the brand did not die. That is the part worth sitting with. Through bankruptcy, 4 changes of ownership, and a journey from a Swedish watch bench to a private equity spreadsheet, Abu Garcia is still here. The Ambassadeur is still made. The round red reel your grandfather used is still on the shelf in updated form, more than 70 years after Oak Merval first drew it. In 2021, the brand marked its 100th anniversary. And here's the twist the corporate story never tells you. While the brand was passed from owner to owner, the old reels, the ones actually machined in Svängsta when made in Sweden was literal, quietly became treasure. A clean, vintage Swedish-made Ambassadeur 5000 or 6500 is a prized collector's piece today. Anglers hunt them down, rebuild them, and pay real money for the ones built before production went global. The market did the math the boardroom never could. The reels from the era when the watch factory still cut every gear are worth more decades later, precisely because of what those 3 stamped words used to guarantee. That is the quiet lesson hiding inside this story. The owners changed, the country changed, the balance sheet changed. But the design, the watchmaker's discipline poured into a fishing reel, outlived all of them. A bankruptcy nearly killed the company that made Abu Garcia famous. Instead, the Swedes bought it, kept building, and let the engineering carry the name through every owner that followed. The reel was always the real asset. Everyone else just held the deed for a while. If this is the kind of story you want more of, like the real history behind the gear in your tackle box, subscribe to American Fishing Essentials and tell me in the comments, which fishing brand should we put under the microscope next? Penn? Mitchell? Pfluger? Drop the name below. The deeper breakdowns, the exact cutoff years, the stampings that tell you where a reel was really made, and the models worth real money today are all in the Angler's Vault, first link below. The fish never cared who owned the factory, neither should the reel in your hand. Until next time.